Hey everyone, today we're going to walk through a patch that I made for my patch book. I think it's a great way to show that creative process of patching and just sort of thinking about how everything is coming together. If you like patches like this and deep dive walkthroughs like this, check out my Patreon page. I have a patch book up there and I'd like to add deep dive videos. I have a bunch up for this Moog Sound Studio, and I'm going to be adding more videos for the Matriarch. So if you're watching this from sometime in the future, there's probably a whole bunch of videos up there with links to the patch books and everything. If you're watching this in real time, then you can expect me to update the patch book with videos just like this one every now and then. So this patch is coming from the patch book. It's called Cosmic Cipher. And it's a drone patch. It has a kind of self-generative quality to it, but there's lots of tweakability and things that you can do to it to make it more interesting and you feel like you're playing it. And one thing I like to do with these patches is make them in such a way that it shows off particular features of the Matriarch. And so a lot of the concepts that I've been talking about in earlier videos, we're going to revisit that here and just show off some patching points. So even if you aren't really interested in this particular patch, there's probably certain connections here that you can use in your own patches and that you might find useful. So ultimately, this is what the patch is going to look and sound like. But we're going to build it up from scratch. One thing I'm going to do right at the beginning is just set up a basic kind of voice so we can hear how things change over time. So that's where my Matriarch is right now. I have the oscillators all set to saw waves. They're all in the same octaves. They're all tuned in unison, and I have the paraphony mode on one voice in unison mode. I'm going to have the oscillators playing at different pitches, and we can change the frequencies right here. Now, if I turn down two oscillators, generally speaking, if you turn it up all the way, that's going to be a perfect fifth. So for this patch, I'm just going to use perfect fifths, and we'll turn these two. Now I want one voice to be much lower than the others to kind of hold down that bass drone sound. And that gives a really nice bass to it. And then we'll turn this fifth up. Right there, that's a really huge, very full sound. So yeah, it sounds great. It just sounds awesome. But anyway, back to the patching. So that's going to be where I'm starting. We can change the waveforms up. I like to have a saw wave in the bass. Let's turn these to get two pulse waves. That gives it a little bit of a bell-like tone. And maybe since this is the octave, we'll leave that as a saw wave. So that's good enough. And of course, this is entirely up to taste. And you should definitely play around with these settings and make this patch your own by adjusting all of those things. So one of the things about self-generative drone patches is we have to have the sound going out all the time. So there's a bunch of different ways we could do that. We could set the VCA mode to drone. That bypasses the envelopes, and since my cutoff is low, we could turn it up. And that's certainly one way we can do it. That's not the way we're going to do it here today. What I want to do is have the envelopes be triggered by something other than the keyboard. So we're going to use this LFO right here. We're going to use a square wave out to trigger our envelopes. And if I plug the square wave, since there's two envelopes, I'm going to use my mult, and we'll go into the multiplier, and we'll come out, trigger in right here, and trigger in right over here. And now you'll notice So every time that goes up, it's going to trigger our envelopes. So I'm going to have to turn this down and up as I'm talking, just so you can hear me. But now we've got this sort of self-generating sound. And if we want to adjust our envelopes now, we can, and just stretch them out a little bit so they're not so choppy. Maybe we'll have the decay of the filter go a little bit longer. Now, just with any type of self-generative patch, you want to put some randomness or some unpredictability into it. And that's where we're going to go over to our modulation module. One thing I'm going to want to do is vary up the rate of this LFO. Now we could just send an LFO from our modulation module into the LFO. But that's still pretty predictable. So what we're going to do is actually modulate the rate here, and then we're going to send that wave out into this LFO. And how we're going to do that is we're going to use the sample and hold. Now, sample and hold samples the noise. So that noise wave is just going nuts. And then at particular points, it's going to sample it and hold a particular value. So it's going to go kind of crazy and up and down and just jump all around. And you can see it goes a little bit fast and slow, then really slow, then, oh, there it starts going a little bit faster. So it's very, very randomized. And actually, if you want to hear that, we can plug it right into the cutoff. Here, we'll just hold this. So it creates this varied rate that's entirely randomized. So it's randomized, but it has this kind of predictability to it. And if you slow it way down, It's really noticeable when it's faster, but when it's slower, it's not quite as noticeable, but it's still there. And only every now and then will it pick up into that faster range. But it almost goes down to where it's barely moving at all, to like a typical rate. So let's take the wave out there and actually have it modulate our LFO right here. So now when we listen to it, I'm gonna plug these back in. It's really, that's just a cool way to get that little bit of unpredictability. I'm actually going to replace this chord with this one. It's a little bit, fits better. So now that we have that unpredictability, we can take this the triangle out and spread it into other places. And what we're going to do is actually use the unpredictable rate of this LFO to modulate how much this actually changes it. So it kind of creates this cyclical thing. So rather than sending this wave out directly into here, we're going to take it out and we'll send it into an attenuator. And then I'm going to use the unpredictable rate of this LFO to control how much this wave is impacting other things. And in fact, let's send that up to this multiple and then have it go into the rate in here. And then we'll also send it to the cutoff. So just to explain, let's go through what we just did, because this is kind of interesting. Actually, before we even get to the cutoff, let's just talk about the fact that we created that unpredictable rate for this LFO. Now we're sending it back on itself because this attenuator is controlling how much this wave impacts this unpredictable rate. If we turn down this attenuator and nothing was plugged into the CV, then this would not be impacted by this wave at all. But by sending this LFO into the CV, it's changing the amount that this wave is impacting things. And this wave is impacting the amount of CV that it ultimately gets. So it's this whole cycle of LFOs modulating each other, and it just makes it really unpredictable and cool. So let's just listen to what that sounds like. So, 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 And then just to use that same waveform in another way, we can take it and plug it into our cutoff as well. Now there's a lot of space there, and that isn't the best for these drone patches. So you're gonna, of course, want to add in some reverb and our delay. So let's add in some delay here. So I'm gonna space it out a little bit. We'll set our time to be pretty slow and our feedback to be pretty long. And when we turn up the mix, now that's a lot of cool patching and creates that nice drone sound. But here, let's turn on the ping pong too. One thing that is really cool when you're playing this is to really mess around with your voicings, because there's the fifths and the root notes, and so we can turn up our oscillators to kind of bring out different tones, maybe lower the bass a little bit. And then also, as you can see, I was playing with my octave knobs as well. That noise gives it a really nice ambience. And then of course, definitely play around with your envelopes. If you want these nice sweeping motions, you can maybe slow the attack of the filter. Now also, just one other little touch that I added was to turn the pitch amount, the pitch mod assign to 2 and 4. And if you turn that up just ever so slightly, you can kind of create these big, whale song type sounds. So anyways, that's the patch, Cosmic Cipher. It's in my patch book on Patreon, and I'm going to be adding more deep dives like this to the patch book with links so you can follow the patch diagrams and create these sounds. I hope you got some creative ideas out of this. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.